Service Certification. So thank you guys for hanging tough. I'm seeing some good comments in the chat about how we start to move this program forward and doing it virtually. So that is something that we're looking at doing even post-COVID. So still getting this information out there just in different ways. COVID has taught us to reinvent and change and do things differently. So good thinking about moving it virtually. So that's something that we're looking at doing moving forward. So if you guys have any other people who feel like they could benefit from this, definitely let them know about this program. But today we're fortunate to bring Allison back. If you guys remembered, she kicked off the program, giving some core responsibilities of board service. Now she's going to talk about the fun part, the fundraising part. Yes, I got dad jokes this morning. So we'll kick it over to Allison and let her take it from there. So Allison, thank you for coming back, and the floor is all yours.
All right, I'm glad to be here. Who else is glad that it's Friday? I am for sure. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can y'all see that okay?
Perfect.
Okay. All right, let's see here. So today we get to talk about my favorite thing, and that's fundraising. That's what my background mostly is, and I've worked with lots of board members over the years, and it's been rewarding to get to know different people as they rotate through the boards with term limits and stuff. So, but fundraising was my role in the organization that I was at, and it's what fills me up and gives me my energy. So if you feel like throwing up a little bit when you think about fundraising, just know that you're probably more normal than me, because most people, they don't really like the fundraising part. I just happen to love it. And so just know that you're not alone if it really makes you feel like you'd rather go to the dentist than be part of, you know, fundraising or asking people for money. So, so today we're going to talk about Fundraising 101 first, and I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on fundraising and some numbers to just explain probably the most sustainable way of fundraising, but also your role as a board member, not being a fundraiser, those simple ways that you can be a rock star board member. That's what I want to share with you, is how you can be the rock star board member, and wherever you start serving on the board, or if you're serving on one right now, that nonprofit is going to be like, man, this is the best board member ever. I wish we could keep them on and not have them rotate off. So you'll feel really special if you practice some of these things I'm going to teach today. The first thing that we're going to talk about, though, is what really I've found really blows people's mind when it comes to where do the charitable dollars come from. So I have this graphic here. This is from the Giving USA report. It comes out in June or July every year. So the numbers we're looking at here are for 2019, and we won't get our 2020 numbers until June or July of 2021. But if you'll notice, Americans gave almost $450 billion to charity in 2019. And I mean, first of all, that number just blows me away. And then secondly, I love to show this pie chart here. If you'll notice right here, 69% was given by individuals. And so this is where I get really fired up. That means that most of the people who make donations are just people like you and me. And I think a lot of times we assume, and it's really hard here in Northwest Arkansas because of Walmart and the Walton family and Tyson and George's and J.B. Hunt. And we've got all these corporations here that are so generous. It's hard to remember that the trend is not that corporations and foundations give all the money. They do wonderful things and they give lots of wonderful contributions. But the money, the most percentage of the dollars comes from individuals. That's why when we go over our next slide, you'll see why it's so good to make sure you are helping that nonprofit connect to people, because it's a lot easier to build a relationship with a person and an individual and really give them that special treatment and thanking them for their gift. It's harder for them to just walk away from your organization once you build that relationship. And it really is, the mission is a lot of the reason that people give, but it really is about the relationships and the connections. So if you'll look at this chart and realize 69% is from people, just regular people like you and me. And then look down here at the 10% right here, giving by bequest. Well, in my mind, that's still from people. That's a person that's left the organization in their will or as a beneficiary on their life insurance, or, you know, in their estate plans, or their, you know, they decided to give part of their stock options, whatever. Giving by bequest is still from people. You don't hear about Coca-Cola leaving someone in their will, but you hear about Mr. So-and-so that worked at Coca-Cola leaving someone in their will. So if you add that to the 69, we're now up to 79% comes from individuals. So giving by foundations is important. It's part of the pie for sure, 17%. And then you look down here, by corporations, 5%. So what I always instruct my nonprofit partners that I work with is I remind them that the corporation is wonderful, but it's still about the relationship with the person that works at the corporation. And in our area, we've got people that come in, work for a few years in Northwest Arkansas, and then go back to the mothership in Cincinnati or New York City or, you know, wherever, Los Angeles. They go back to the main court, you know, the main office, and they don't stay here. Now, a plus about our Rogers Lowell Chamber is that because of our quality of life here, and the chamber has done a lot of that work since the early years when the growth began, because of the quality of life here, we find that a lot of those suppliers decide, oh my goodness, you know, we love Northwest Arkansas so much, we don't want to leave, we want to stay here. So they end up transferring to other suppliers that have offices here so that they don't have to move their families back. And that happens more times than not. And so building the relationship still is the key, because then when they move from, let's say, let me come up, Clorox, and then they decide to move over to Unilever, then you've still got the relationship with the person. And you get, you know, what I've noticed is once they get settled in their new role, they love to tell their new team about your organization. So this is me just telling you why the board member's role is so important in relationships. So I'm going to go on to the next slide and explain that in Fundraising 101, for the most part, we look at it as a pyramid, the fundraising pyramid. And this is one of those things that no one knows who invented it or who came up with it, but we've all been sharing it, you know, forever. And you'll look at the bottom of the pyramid, and I think of that as like you're out on your fishing boat and you're casting your net just as wide as you can. You're throwing it out there. You want to get as many fish in the net and bring them into the fold and get to know them. And you'll do this by your fundraising events. You'll do this by board members making connections. You'll do this by open houses, mailings. If you have a membership organization, your memberships. If you buy, if you're about to do a direct mail piece and you buy a mailing list, this is just you casting the net. We're trying to get as many people that we know involved. And you want to bring them in at the bottom of the pyramid. And then the goal is to work them up the pyramid. Once they've attended an event or come to an open house, or you had that ribbon cutting for the new program and the chamber came and all the ambassadors and everybody came, you try to capture everybody's information so that you can begin the cultivation process. And so it's like identifies there at the bottom, and then you begin giving them information. And this is where our board members are so valuable, because it's not that we necessarily think all board members should go out and ask people for money. And we don't necessarily think all board members should just give us all their contacts and let us just, hammer people with asking for money. That's not really the best way. The best way is for you as a board member to say, well, you know what? I need to tell so-and-so about this because I think I heard them say that this was their passion and this is something they wanted to be more involved in. Or I need to make sure I tell all my neighbors that I've joined this board and explain what we're doing and get them involved and just ask them if I can sign them up for the newsletter or whatever. It's a way for you to make the connection, or invite people. If you sponsor a table at something, invite people to sit at the table and then make sure you're still engaging them with what the organization's doing and your role as a board member. It's all about making the connections. And then it goes even a step further once it's a natural fit and feels right. And most of the time, when it feels right. If the person is there because they're your friend and they are, I'll give a donation. And so you keep them involved. You also know when you get a person that says, oh my goodness, I had no idea this was here. This is exactly what I want to get involved in. Let me know if I can serve on a committee. I want to do this with you. And then you're making sure they're meeting the executive director and they're meeting the development director, and you're getting them on committees and getting them involved. And then you've got some that say, I'm going, but listen, when it's time for my son's T-ball fundraiser, you're going to give to that too. Because that's where I'm at right now. I'm more passionate about that. So it's all about just the knowing where people stand and how they feel. But if you don't ever introduce them to the project you're working on, then that nonprofit never gets the chance to share all the great things that they're working on. So bringing them in your annual giving level is the greatest thing. And then if they really are energized, moving them up to the major giving level is the next thing. And that's where you see we've piqued their interest. We're continuing to keep them involved. Maybe there's a special campaign going on for a new building, or we need a new van, or we're trying to raise funds for our reserve fund or our endowment fund, or hey, we really want your company to sponsor the next fundraiser. You loved coming so much. Do you think your group would want to be a sponsor and have their own table next year? Also, depending on where they are, maybe they fit into the major gift category. They gave that quick checkbook gift while they were there at the gala, but if you can tell that they're very interested, you want to work with the development director to see, what, I think they might be willing to give more and might be willing to sign up for a 3-year pledge or a 3-year commitment at this level. So that's the next level, is just getting them into more of a major giving, or a major, not necessarily giving, that's great, but also more involved in that donor growth area. Then at the top is what I talked about earlier, estate or planned giving. And that's when it could be, someone passing away and leaving you in their will, but you've done the best part of the pyramid by working them up the levels and getting to know them to a point where they want to leave their legacy, or they want to make a large gift that has an impact for years and years and years and forever, to infinity. So sometimes an estate gift or a planned gift, they might not even pass away, but the gift is so large, or it's something that they're going to do with their retirement that pays you out while they're still alive, that you can recognize and acknowledge them. And it leads to all this based on the relationships and cultivating those relationships. A lot of times the asking for money isn't at the forefront of the relationship. And so you bringing someone to get involved isn't always about you, well, I've shared, all my contacts with the organization. Now they're going to hit them up and ask them for a bunch of money. It really doesn't work as much like that, because that's not as successful. And I've found when I approach people with what I would want, and what I would want is to just be introduced to the cause. And if my friend said, oh my goodness, I just started serving on this board, I've learned so much. Did you know that teachers pay $500 on average out of their own pocket for their classroom supplies and to do all the things they want to do with their students? I had no idea that it was that much. I knew that teachers bought their own stuff, and I knew that they were stretched pretty thin, but I had no idea it was $500 of their own money. You know, you tell some tidbit fact over cocktails with your friend, and you say, you introduce that I'm on this board. I found out this fact, and oh my goodness, when we have something, I hope you'll be involved. I'll keep you posted on the upcoming events, and I'd love to tell you more about it once I get my feet wet and really learn more about the organization. It's all about building that relationship and getting people introduced. A lot of times, if they're interested, then you can assist the development director and the executive director in finding ways to work them up the pyramid and keep them involved, and finding, what their niche is, what their niche is, where do they want to get involved. So that's a little bit of fundraising 101. And just to put you at ease that it's not about, I joined this board and now I have to sell my soul and all my contacts, and they're just going to start telemarketing my people. That's not really how it works. And you can be such an effective board member with some simple strategies that help with fundraising. So 5 things that board members can do to be rock stars, and I mean really knock the socks off of your new organization that you're going to serve on, or the one you serve now. So this is one of these most simple things you can do. And right now with COVID, it is, one of the only things you can do. And that is every single day, or every single, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, make sure that when you're on Facebook, mindlessly scrolling, that you take time to go to the organization's social media pages, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and those are kind of the main 3. If they have others, definitely work those in too. But all you have to do to beat that Facebook algorithm, and that's a whole nother topic that we could go into, but to help spread awareness is the key. And right now we have lots of digital ways that we can do that. And all you have to do is like, comment. If you could do those 2 things on a post that they just posted and you haven't done it yet, you could go right now. I know a lot of you have your phones within reach, or you're on it right now. I'm giving you permission. Go to Facebook right now and find an organization that you love or that you're already serving on, and find their last post, or if that one's not appropriate, find the one before that. Find a post that you can like and comment on. Then maybe on the next day, you find another one that really fits with what you're feeling, and you share it and you tag someone, or you make a whole new post about this organization and you tag them in the post, or you don't tag them, you just tell about them, and in the comments you share the link to the website. And I found that if you share a link in the comments instead of in your actual post, your Facebook message will go a lot further. It beats the algorithm by who knows how much, but it is helpful to not have the link in the comments. And the reason Facebook has made it so hard is they want you to buy those sponsorships, which are not very expensive. But these are simple ways to help spread awareness on their social media without them having to sponsor or pay for Facebook advertising or Instagram. So like, comment, share, tag, and by all means, like today for emerging leaders, you all are here for emerging leaders. It's a great thing to snap a picture and then tag the Rogers Lowell Chamber, check in at the Rogers Lowell Chamber, tag or make sure emerging leaders is highlighted, and share what a great class this was. Be on the lookout, friends. You need to do this class too. Something like that about the whole series of the board service training. So these are ways that you can help spread that awareness and show that you are committed. And I just did one not before last. I serve on a board for the Children's Advocacy Centers of Arkansas. And we have two CACs in this area. One's in Washington County, one's in Benton County. And so I'm very active in the two that are up here, which is probably how the state chapter got my name to serve on the state board. But there are 17 across the state. And they weren't able to have their large event this year because of COVID. And so they asked board members to do some quick testimonials about, help us out. We weren't able to have our event. I hope you'll give. So I just told a few facts in my post about CACs. I did a quick video. I tried to keep it 30 seconds. It's really hard to do that and get the message out, but definitely under a minute. But where you just, record yourself saying, I'm, Alice, or hey guys, I serve on this board, and, did you know this and that, and here's why I'm so passionate about it. If you would like to get more involved or can help us out in this campaign or with this, goal or whatever, please click on the link in the comments. And there were two people that I know of that clicked the link in the comments and actually made their gift that night. But anytime you can do that, it just is not just for the dollars, but the awareness alone and the beginning of building the relationship. And then you can go back and say, who all commented or liked it. And if you find that information, then you think, okay, I need to be sure and tell Susie, I noticed she liked that post. I need to tell her about being, how I'm loving being a board member, when the next event is. I need to be sure and invite her to that open house. It gives you a way to connect with your friends and more authentically bring them in to the awareness and the, it's really lighting your fire. You've got the fire in your gut about this organization. It's your way of sharing it with others without saying, hey, give me money. It's more about, let me tell you what I've been doing. So whenever you can, checking the social media pages and liking, commenting, sharing. And here's the thing. Does it seem crazy to do it once a day? Yeah, probably so. Then your friends are going to be like, my goodness, all she talks about is that board that she serves on. So be strategic with it. Once or twice a week, make sure you are liking and commenting. Maybe share something once a week or once a month even. But that's just my 2 cents on, that's an easy thing you can do right now in COVID is support your organization on social media. There are so many board members that don't think to do this. And one of the things I always heard when I still worked at Open Avenues, I would hear, well, I never see your posts. I never see them. And I would just think, oh, that just, that hurts me because I want everyone to see. Well, now that I am on boards and not in a traditional role at an organization, I'm finding that I have to go to that page. And the more I go to the page and the more I interact with the page, the more it shows up in my feed. So remember that. If you're going once or twice a week and doing something, it will show up more in your feed and you won't have to remember. But you have to make an effort each week to go and keep that activity going so that it keeps showing up in your feed. So you have to seek it out. It doesn't just naturally appear. And even as I worked there, I realized that the Open Avenues posts didn't show up in my feed, and I was the one running the page. So I had to go find them on my personal page and make sure I was liking them as well. So that's a lot about social media, but right now during COVID, it is an easy thing you can do. And the next one, tell someone Tell someone, at least one person each week, about the board you serve on, and tell them why you're passionate about it, what made you, what's the story or what's the feeling that made you get there. Even if it's, I took the emerging leaders class on board service, and I just had to get involved in something, and this one was the first one that I found out about, and it has turned out to be the greatest thing. Oh, I just love it. But share someone. And this is another one that's pretty easy. If the organization you're serving on has a monthly e-blast, like the e-newsletter that they send out, this is a great way to click forward and forward it to 5 friends and pick 5 different friends every time that it comes out and say, this is a board that I'm serving on, and I wanted to share. Notice the story about Jimmy John, and notice what a difference has been made in his life. And so I just wanted you to see this. This is why I'm serving on the board, and I just had to share. I mean, that's something so easy. Will the person respond to your email? Probably not. Or maybe they'll write back, oh my goodness, that was cool. Well, then you can put a little note. Okay, Ashley wrote back. She said she loved hearing about that. So anytime I have another story like this, I need to be sure and share with her. There are just ways. You could sit down, and this goes back to social media too. You could sit down and type up an email and send the link to the organization's Facebook page or a link to the organization's website and say, check out the website. This tells more. They do a better job of telling about the mission than I will, but I just wanted you to see what board I'm serving on. And then share the Facebook page. Hey, they're having a contest, and the board member that has the most likes gets the most likes this week, gets a prize, and I really want to win. So be sure and like the page that I'm serving on this board, and I want you to like the page. There's so many ways to share. If you're in staff meeting and you're going around talking about the weekend or whatever, try to sneak this in the conversation. Oh my goodness, we volunteered this weekend over at the Samaritan House packing snack pack bags for the schools. I mean, just be sure that as a board member, you're finding ways with your busy schedule to bring it up, forward, or share with someone, and tell yourself, I need to do this once a week, a personal share. Not as much about the blanket Facebook share or the Instagram, heart, but this is like I'm sitting down and forwarding it or texting it to some friends each week, at least one. Okay, on some of these, I put in COVID style. So we'll talk about, when I say tour and get-togethers, know that I understand we can't do much of that right now unless it's outside, but invite someone new for a tour, or schedule a meeting with the executive director or director of development, at least every other month, maybe every quarter, whatever. Just have yourself a strategic goal of how you're going to share the message with your contacts or someone special. And COVID style, you know what? We're doing a lot of Zoom. It seems to be working. Even in the fundraising world, we're doing some major asks of, stretch gifts over Zoom now. Find a fun way to use Zoom to, used to, we'd say, let's meet for coffee. Well, we can't quite do that right now. But after these other 2 steps of, sharing on Facebook, then, I forwarded the newsletter. There are going to be people in your network that bubble up that seem like they want more information. Or if they don't overly seem like it, they certainly haven't said, don't send this stuff to me anymore. You can tell that they're very receptive to what you're sharing with them. The next step would be to say, you know what? I was going to see if we could go have coffee. Now, there are a lot of outdoor places you could meet for coffee, but if not, I wanted to see, would you want to hear more about that program I was telling you about? I'd love to set up just a quick Zoom, like a 30-minute Zoom, maybe even 20 minutes, just so I could introduce you to the executive director and the director of development over at Samaritan House. I'd love for you to meet them, and I wanted to tell them how much fun you had at the open house the other day, and just introduce you so they can put a face with your name and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you know, be creative and take that old, let's meet for coffee and talk about, you know, what you can do to help us. Take it on to Zoom. I'd love to do a Zoom, and you can do a tour via Zoom nowadays. I mean, if they've got a video, I've been instructing them, y'all need digital tours of your organizations, especially if they're really, if a tour is really powerful, then you definitely need to get that digital so you can share it on Zoom, share it on your social media. And it's a great time to say, I want to just, you know, let's get together on Zoom. I want them to tell you more about that program that you were asking me more questions about last week. So that's another way to be a rock star board member. And of course, I wrote this one before COVID. Host a soiree at your home or a happy hour at a restaurant, and you just invite a mass amount of people and say, and then have the executive director or the development director, or even if you're more comfortable, giving a little, just a quick 5 to 10 minute update on the organization and why you joined the board. And we're right in the middle of our sponsor a ride campaign. And so we're asking people for a gift of $40 to sponsor a client's ride for a whole month. There's so many fun ways you can do this. Well, with COVID, once again, a Zoom party would be so fun. An outdoor driveway party, a drive-by parade where you give them, you know, does the organization have caps left over from their last golf tournament? Could you give all your guests a cap with their logo on it? Or you give them a little goodie bag and say, now I've put in here the brochure about the Women's Giving Circle. And I really want you to consider it, because then we can go to the meetings together and it'll be a blast. They're always fun. The last time was a cooking class, and it was such a blast. I got you a wooden spoon that they gave out, and I wanted you to have one. And you have people drive by the driveway or meet on the driveway, or there are some restaurants and some of these breweries that have, you know, the outdoor patio seating. You could, you know, schedule yourself a happy hour and then do 5 or 10 minutes. Now I've got y'all here. Yes, it's for happy hour, but I wanted to tell you about the board I'm serving on and tell you what we've got going on right now. And I see this as another graduation. Like, all of these are levels of ways you can help. This one would be one that you've gotten them involved. They've met and heard about that one program with the executive director. And then you're doing this because we're in the middle of this. It's time for our annual giving end of year letter. And instead of sending y'all all an email and a letter, I wanted to have you over for a beer and tell you all about it, and see if you'd write us a check tonight. I mean, it's very simple, but don't think that this would be something you would do first thing. It's all about the building the relationship. So this would come after you've already established, you know what, my friend Mike has been very receptive and wants to be more involved. And honestly, right now, I feel like people are giving back a lot because they know about COVID and how it's affected things. So we talked earlier, people are wanting to go places. If you can follow the guidelines and make it safe, you know, have something fun. You know, COVID style, use Zoom or get creative with a driveway or patio party. And I promise your friends won't see it as much about you bugging them about money, because you've been walking them along the relationship superhighway this whole time. Okay, the next one is kind of a flip about, you know, you've brought someone to meet the staff. Think of ways to invite the executive director and the director of development to other things that your company or you are involved in. If you have a Sunday school class that loves to pick a place to give every month, then by all means, make sure you schedule some kind of Zoom where the executive director and the director of development can tell a little bit about, you know, you guys gave us Sunday school money last month and we used it to purchase more supplies, cleaning supplies due to COVID. Thank you so much. We were able to stock up our utility closet with all kinds of cleaning supplies. Think about inviting them, you know, used to, I would say, the other events. maybe you're already going to an event because your company sponsored it. You find out there are 4 empty seats. That's a great time to call your favorite nonprofit and say, we've got a table at the charity ball. Would you and so-and-so want to attend? I've got 2 extra tickets, and I may have 4 if you want to bring your spouse. That way they can come and not only get to know other people at your table that you work with, but they can also benchmark and see how other events are running their call to action, or how they're running their run a show, or did they have a DJ or a band, or how did they do check-in. This is all before COVID for sure, but it's a way to let them see how other nonprofits are doing it and connect to some of those other nonprofit staffs. I've found in Northwest Arkansas, we're all really good about collaborating and sharing. It's not backbiting and competitive like you would think, as far as the nonprofits helping each other. We all tend to volunteer at each other's events. It helps us with networking. It helps us with benchmarking and seeing better ways to, do things at events. If it's smoother here, we should try that next year. We're all more open and collaborative than competitive and, keeping our secrets. We share. And that is a wonderful thing about all the nonprofits in Northwest Arkansas. And there's a way that you can be a part of that just by including them. On COVID style, once again, you can utilize Zoom, invite them to speak at a staff meeting for a moment of mission or a moment of good, and invite them to, host a Sunday school class Zoom and invite them to tell, how much, they need your help, and see if the Sunday school class will adopt that organization. Is there a project or something that your team or your son's baseball team or your neighbors would want to be involved in? Do they want to help pack the snack pack bags? Do they want to help with landscaping? Those are some things that you can do right now, and you can follow the social distancing guidelines. There's probably a great project that you can do. Or if your team is doing a great project and it's not necessarily for another nonprofit, but maybe you bring in some staff from the organization to work alongside your team and say, we're doing this thing at our office, and we'd love it if you'd want to attend that day and be a part of it, just so you can kind of get to know some more people on the team. It's just really being creative on how you can connect the dots. It's less about you asking for direct donations and more about you connecting the dots for your nonprofit. And our bonus 6th thing, last but certainly not least, make a personal contribution to the organization. And that doesn't mean you have to be a millionaire, or you don't have to be a Walton or a Tyson. No, sorry. That means that the first thing you should do when you join a board is go ahead and make a gift. And I'm talking just make a gift. If it's $25, if it's $100, if you and your wife or husband or spouse have been talking about really needing to give something, and it might be a lot of dollars, go ahead and do that, and realize that is a part of being a board member. Is if you contribute first, it's a lot easier to go and ask all of your colleagues and friends and your company and your Sunday school class. It's a lot easier to get them involved if they know you're making a personal contribution. It's really quite tacky to ask other people to give if you haven't given yourself. And a lot of organizations that apply for grants, large grants, I promise those grantors, those foundations look to see, do 100% of the board give to the organization? If 100% of the board is not giving to the organization, there's a little red flag of, well, why aren't they? If they're on the board, why are they not giving? So get that taken care of first. Let that be the thing that just makes you stand out from all the rest. I'm so glad I get to serve now. Now I need to go ahead and make my contribution, so I can say that I, give. I mean, that's going to blow an executive director and development director. That's going to blow them right away. They're going to be like, oh my goodness, rock star board member. They've already asked me about how they can make their gift. And then, like I said, if you can only give, you know, what you think is not significant, never think that. Any amount to an organization helps that organization. And the person that gives $10, to them, it feels like $1 million. And they want that feeling of giving. So appreciate and know that your gift, no matter how big or how small, is going to be appreciated and it's going to help. If you're one that can give this much, but you know your corporation's going to sponsor the golf tournament and the gala and the you know, the open house, y'all are going to buy the cookies or whatever. If you know you're going to be involved in all those ways, all of that counts. All of that counts. But if your company is a big supporter, it still means you need to make a personal commitment on some level. It's great if your company is a supporter, but always try to make at least one personal contribution too every year. And it, like I said, doesn't matter how big or how small, but then they can say our board gives 100%. Every board member gives, and every board member is committed to our organization. I'm going to go back, and I meant to tell y'all, please chime in or raise your hand if you want to ask questions. We will have some question time here in about, you know, like any time now. I didn't even realize it's already 10:45. My, how time flies. But anyway, I will definitely answer any questions you have, or if you want to, you know, tell a horror story or anything like that. I was going to go back to when we're looking at that graphic from the very beginning with the pie chart of where the money comes from. There's something that board members that I want to relay to you so that you understand when you go into these roles. Fundraising events are fantastic. They have a place, a very important place in the whole development scheme of things. And when in fundraising, the development director and the development plan, that's fundraising. That's they call it development director and they call it the development plan. That's all. The bottom line of what that means is, how are we going to raise this money? And you want to have a balance. And so I want to tell you all very gingerly that as much as we love our parties and galas and golf tournaments and 5Ks and auctions, as much as we love all that, you can have too many of those. And when you go back, let me see if I can backspace back here. When you go back to this, if you can remember to keep everybody focused on that 69, which we added the 10, 79% coming from individuals. The beauty of the special event, the gala, the golf tournament, and all that jazz, is that that's how you're bringing them into the bottom of the pyramid. You're bringing them into the family. But if you have, you know, 4 or 5 events a year, you're taking away from the time to build the relationship and work all those people that you've brought in on the bottom level. You want to have the time to work those people up that pyramid so they become the major givers and the bequesters. That's the ultimate goal. If you have too many fundraising events, then your staff at the organization is constantly planning parties and deciding what chicken and wine we're going to serve and what color the tablecloths are going to be and how many tea times do we have and what's going to be the lunch at the golf tournament and who's going to donate the beer. All those things are very important. And you really need at least one special event a year. I like to say, try not to have more than 2. And definitely make sure if you have 3, one of them better be more of an informative open house, philanthropic event and less about chicken dinners and wines and auctions and all that and frou-frou clothes. Your development people will appreciate having time to get to know everybody that came to the party. And that is a huge thing. If you have party after party after party after party, you're just sending invitations and you're never getting the chance to meet all those guests that came to the party and get them involved in the next level of support, or get them involved on the planning committee for the next event that's at the opposite time of year. It's just a way to stay balanced. It's the same way with writing grants to foundations. Yes, there is a lot of money out there in grants, but you wouldn't want your development director spending 75% of her time or his time writing grants, knowing that 17% of your dollars is going to come from foundations. So I hope you're catching on to what I'm saying. You want a balanced approach. And sometimes we have great ideas to have parties because it's easier to ask our friends to attend a party than it is to say, hey, sponsor a ride is $40. Will you do $40? It's easier to ask our friends to come to a party, and I get that. And we need them to come to the party. But once they've been to the party and gotten the information and the interest they're intrigued and they want to get more involved, then it's building that relationship and putting those personal touches on the thank you. So they write a check at the party. You want to spend time cultivating that relationship and growing their interest and getting them more involved and finding the thing that they won't be able to say no to, that the organization does, that program that's just going to fill their heart up, that they're going to want to sponsor the whole thing. You can do more of that, which is your 79% of the giving, instead of then immediately going to the next party and inviting a whole, a new crop of people and inviting them to another party where they give another gift, but they're not really getting involved. So you want to keep a balance. Balance is the key.
Hey, Allison.
Yes.
Hey, I got a quick question, kind of backing up to the expectations of board members giving.
Yes.
Is it kind of like common practice for there to be like a certain dollar amount that these organizations will ask their board members to give before they can be a part of the board? Is that kind of common?
That is an excellent question. And I don't think it is out there. Like, there are some that do that, but it's not common. The most common thing is that a board member needs to give. Most of the organizations do not have a limit or an amount that they require. And sometimes they don't even have a time of year that they remind the board, hey guys, remember it's our fiscal year kickoff and we need your board contributions. I had gotten to where I talked to the board about their giving at a certain time of year and just said, hey, it's time for the board to make their, as a board member, to make your annual gift. But we did not require a certain amount, and a lot of organizations do not. There are some out there that do require you to give a certain amount, and it's definitely something you could ask in those early conversations about, should I serve or should I not serve? You could say, does the board give? And it will make you look very responsible, that you want to make sure, hey, before I jump on this, is the board all giving? Because you want them to say, yes, they all give. And some boards say that if your company is a sponsor, that counts as giving. And there are a lot of small businesses out there that it's the one and the same. Their small business sponsored something, so that really means it was from their pocket. So there's no right or wrong or black or white, but just know that's a great question to ask in the conversations. Is there a board gift requirement? But I would start with, does the board give? And then if they say yes, they all give. Is there a minimal requirement of what we're supposed to give? Is there something that every board member is supposed to give, or can we all just give from what we can, our decision? And then most will probably say, no, we just need you to make a gift, and there isn't a set. There are larger institutions that do require a certain amount, and there are giving circles where you give a certain amount a year to be a part of the giving circle. And that's another creative way to get people in the circle and then build those relationships, you know. So but that's an excellent question, and it's not common that they all have a certain price. What is common is that you just need to be prepared to give, and it'd be great if you did it before they asked. You'd be a real rock star then. Okay, now I'm going to go back to questions, and we see that there. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop share so that we can, are there any other questions I missed in the chat? Oh, I see one over here. The expectation was 1,000, and the expectation was set by the board chair and the CEO of the organization without consulting the board. Oh, yes, that would be very upsetting. Why would they not, the board not decide? Yeah, so that's like a red flag. But if you still want to serve, one of your things could be, you know what, development director and executive director and board chair, we need to talk about this $1,000, because I feel like we're missing a lot of great board members based on that $1,000. And you know, that level, I don't know how that got decided, because that's we're restricting our chance to get some really great board members by doing that. So that would have upset me too.
This is Karen.
Yes.
I was going to say, I asked, I think, kind of the original question, and there was one group that I'd worked with, and I wasn't a board member at the time, but their board members served 2-year terms, and it was a give or get. So they wanted people to either give or help host an event or solicit donations or solicit a sponsorship to fulfill that. So it wasn't always necessarily a direct board contribution. I was just curious if that was common, that there were certain targets, or if that might have been unique to organizations.
Yeah, there are some that do, you know, all of them are supposed to we have an expectation, and I'm speaking from the nonprofit side now. We have an expectation that you're going to make a donation yourself, and that you're going to figure out ways to find other donations. So, but I've found that if it's less black and white on that, you know, give or get is one thing, but give or get, and you have to raise $2,500 from your friends before June 30th. I don't feel like that goes over well. And that's why I talked to y'all through those stages of, if you're constantly bringing awareness, if you're constantly working on the awareness and connecting with your colleagues and your contacts, you will find the ones that bubble up, that you know, come, you know, show up, that you want to get more involved because you can tell they want to get more involved. And it's less about, you know, deadlines and you know, goals that you have to make. Now, I think as a board member, wouldn't it be great if you set your own goal? You just kind of looked at your, you know, who you think would be a good fit to get involved and cultivate, and then you set your own goal of what you want to raise. You don't necessarily have to tell anybody that. You can just say, you know what, I think I could get, you know, 10 of my friends to do $100. Or you sit and play with the math, or I'm going to be sure that I invite that table that I buy every year. I'm going to invite different people each year so that we introduce new people to the mission. And I'm going to send the table information, the sponsorship information, to the ones that I invited last year. I'm going to make a goal to send it and say, hey, this year I'm buying a table again, and I'm inviting some new people, but I didn't want you to feel left out. I hope you'll join me and buy your table and bring, you know, 9 of your friends next year. I feel like those are great ways to do it. And it's the same thing that you're talking about, that it's give or get, and it's a target, but you don't necessarily have to have the specific amount. If your board does that and you feel like it's doable, go for it. If they do it and it kind of feels uncomfortable, then be very honest and say, honestly, I don't know that I can meet this requirement. Is that going to be is that going to make me not be able to be on the board? And just be open and honest about that. But a lot of times, if you come up with your goals, you'll be surprised how well you'll do just by asking a person to listen about a cause or mission and how it changed your life or how it changed that participant's life. You wouldn't believe how people respond to that. And really, the mission is a lot of it, but the thing that takes it over to the getting people involved is the passion that you show for it. Your friends and your colleagues and your family, they are the ones that, because you're involved and you're fired up about it, they get fired up about it too. And so if you just remember, a lot of it is just sharing the story. A lot of times once you do all the cultivation, the people that you're cultivating will 9 times out of 10 make their donation or decide what they want to help with before you have to ask them and make that specific awkward ask. And if they don't, then you'll know when you get to the point where, okay, I really, you're talking to the development director and you're like, I know, I thought she would have already sponsored it by now, but she hasn't. So how about we figure out a way to get her on Zoom and tell her why we need her support so much? Are there any other crazy questions about fundraising? Because I know fundraising, there are so many board members, they don't want to fundraise. And that's why I want to put you at ease. It's not as much about just, selling out your contacts and asking them for money as it is making those connections and helping the organization build the relationship. Angela says, I really like a monthly giving plan, $15 a month, $180 annually. Absolutely. And we're getting a lot more of those now. And now with technology, people can use fundraising software. And so, you can set that up and you don't even miss those it's like payroll deduction. You don't miss those. And you honestly, the organization gets a larger gift because, oh yeah, I go to that party every year and I write my $50 check. Well, if you're doing monthly, $10 a month, you've given $120. So the monthly giving plan is excellent. Excellent. It's such a good way to get involved. And if you're a board member and can't do you want to make a commitment and you've got that goal and you can't do $500, well, break something down into what could you do monthly. And I guarantee you'll get a lot further, have a lot larger gift and a larger impact doing it that way. And it's a great way if you want to get involved. I'd like to sign up for $10 a month at first. And then I'm going to see, how that does. And then maybe next year I'll be able to increase that to $25 a month. Like, so many easy ways for you to be an excellent giver and to get your friends to do it too. So the monthly giving plan is a great way to say, guys, I had you over for happy hour and now I need you to do something for me. I need you all to go in this app and sign up to give monthly. And, so, thank you. I'm seeing some good things in the comments. Thank you. I'm telling you, I could talk about this all day. I love the part of fundraising. It is really more about how do we share the mission and build those relationships. And building relationships is what is my favorite thing. I love it when it's more authentic and more bringing people in naturally. Is it the quickest way to raise the dollars? No, but it's the most sustainable way, because like we've learned in COVID, your event can be a huge success and raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then a pandemic can hit. And have you built the relationships with the people that were at those events? If you haven't, it's going to be really hard to reach out to them and say, excuse me, could you give that $50 that you always give when we ask at the end of the night after you've had a few drinks? Can you do that when you haven't talked to them since the last event? And it's a pandemic, so they don't get in there and get all the warm fuzzies. That's why building the relationships is so important, because it becomes, it's more authentic. It's more sustainable. Is it the quick dollar? Not usually, because it's a slower pace, but you have to have this as part because that chart says it all. 79% comes from individuals.
Well, Allison, thank you so much for your time. And I think that's a great way to end it. It's all about building relationships. You're not going to give to someone that you don't have a relationship with. So that's a critical piece in nonprofits and board service and fundraising is that relationship side. I just want to thank everyone for attending the Northwest Arkansas Emerging Leaders Board Service Certification. Just remember, the work is not done here. Now we get to take this knowledge that we've learned through the course and then go out and actually start implementing it into the boards that we're serving on. If you're currently not serving on a board, don't worry, there are plenty of opportunities out there. From what will happen now is I will add every single one of your emails to an email distribution list that we have here through Emerging Leaders. And I have nonprofits who are currently looking for board service. So I will send those out your way. If there's an opportunity that looks very enticing to you, feel free to reach out to that person directly. I'll include all their contact information, how to get a hold of them. But just remember, the work does not stop here. We have there's such a need here in Northwest Arkansas for great leaders to step up and be in this board service role. So you guys go out and do the work. I will share the slides from Allison today because there was a lot of great content here. So thank you again, Allison. Thank you again, all the participants.
And if y'all need help connecting to nonprofits, if you want to just send me an email as to, what nonprofits you're interested in, after he sends out the list, if there's just one that you've been, I might know someone there. I'd be glad to help get you connected.
Definitely. That's what it's all about. Relationships again. It's all about those relationships. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. And thank you again for being part of this program.